You can start recording. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad you could be here. We welcome you here and just want to give you some information. After several years of talking about the opportunity to include Gleneagle into the town of Monument boundaries, we've decided to have a public meeting to include you in this discussion. We want to hear from you, the residents of your community. To start off, this is something that only you can decide on. And one decision that you can make is to keep the status quo. We will only continue this procedure with the support and direction from you, the residents of Gleneagle, and the Town of Monument Council. From this meeting, if you wish to continue this discussion, we plan to survey Gleneagle residents to further gauge the willingness to annex into the Town of Monument. Tonight's meeting is twofold. It's to introduce you to some of the leadership of the Town of Monument, the Monument Fire District, and to answer questions that you might have. If there is a will to move forward by the residents of Gleneagle, the next steps will need to be presented to our town council for approval to move forward. We have several speakers here tonight to discuss the pros and cons of a decision such as this. I'm going to introduce them now. But once again, I want to reiterate that this process will only take place at your request and your approval. To my right, I have Patrick Regan, our new police chief for the town of Monument. We have Jeremy Reichert, our assistant public works director down at the end. Tom Tharnish is over here. He's our public works director. And then we have Andy Kovacs, our fire chief with the Monument Fire District. Our next speaker, though, will be our esteemed Mayor Mitch LaKind.
Thanks, Mike. And thank you all for coming out. Really appreciate seeing the turnout. This is an interesting conversation that we're going to be having tonight. I'm hoping it's definitely two directions, right? We're going to explain some things to you, and I love to hear what you think about the idea of annexing into the town. A quick story. On July 4th, I was at the booth that the town puts up for the 4th of July and the street fair. Hopefully some of you have attended the parade and the street fair, and several residents from Gleneagle approached me, and I had no idea this was coming, and said, "When are you annexing us into the town? We can't wait." And I was a little bit taken back by that because I had no idea that there were residents that were interested in it. And I took their contact information and I passed it on to Mr. Foreman to make sure that we could start capturing who those people were. But this is not something that the town council has discussed amongst each other in public or private. This is not something that we have discussed with town staff. The only thing that shows Gleneagle as part of a future annexation is the mandated 3-mile plan that we have to submit to the state of Colorado. That is it. Who's going to be next? Yep.
So our next speaker. Okay. So every town is required to have a 3-mile annexation plan. And so that goes to the state. It shows what you potentially could annex. Now, we can't annex anything without the residents of that community wanting to join the town of Monument. Okay. Can we wait for the questions until after everybody makes the presentation? Okay, thanks. Our next speaker is Andy Kovacs, the fire chief with the Monument Fire District.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Andy Kovacs. I'm your fire chief representing the Monument Fire District. I did bring a PowerPoint presentation tonight. I did want to kind of explain what's been going on with your fire department for the past 2 years. And so essentially over the last 2 years, the Donald Westcott Fire Protection District, which currently serves the Gleneagle community, started having consolidation discussions with the Tri-Lakes Monument Fire Protection District, which serves the town of Monument, and then largely unincorporated El Paso County. And the two board of directors have come together over the past 2 years to consolidate the two fire districts. And what I want to do for you really quickly is just show you a video of the fire district and give you a little bit of context. And then we'll go into several slides about the specifics of the consolidation process. And then I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Monument Fire District is more than a job. It is a calling to serve others in their time of need. Our firefighters are highly trained and knowledgeable to handle emergencies, whether a medical aid, fire, natural, or human-made disaster. Our firefighters are always ready, day or night, dedicated to serving the citizens of our communities with character, connection, and a commitment to excellence. Nestled between Colorado Springs and Castle Rock, Monument Fire District serves a growing community of 43,000 residents from 5 fire stations. The district is committed to leading the country through innovation and technology, employing state-of-the-art facilities, apparatus, and tools and equipment to help our firefighters get the job done. Monument Fire District boasts 3 advanced life support ambulances, taking pride in providing compassionate patient care using the most current evidence-based guidelines. With the ever-looming threat of wildfire, our firefighters are trained to combat the danger. Our firefighters are also trained in vehicle extrication, water and ice rescue, hazardous materials incidents, and technical rescue. We are committed to providing a safe community in which to work, play, and visit. We do this through public education, fire prevention, and wildfire mitigation. Serving others has no higher calling.
So over the past 2 years, the Tri-Lakes Monument and Donald Westcott Fire Protection District have been going through the process of consolidating the 2 fire districts. And last year, if you recall, we renamed the organization Monument Fire District. For you, essentially, we're a special district. So even though we cover the town of Monument, that's probably only about 20% of our service area. The rest of our fire district, up to 80% of it, is in unincorporated El Paso County, including the Gleneagle community. So currently we have 5 fire stations. Those are staffed 24/7, 365, and that includes your Gleneagle Fire Station, and it includes the fire station on Highway 83. As you can see, we're in the process of developing a regional training center that's going to be located adjacent to our Fire Station 1 on Highway 105. And that will provide our firefighters with training opportunities through various props and a classroom setting as well to educate our firefighters on the latest techniques and strategies to not only for firefighting, for EMS and our all risk operations that we provide. So right now we have about 22 on-duty personnel at those 5 stations every day. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight specifically to the Donald Westcott district and to the Gleneagle community is that your ambulance prior to the consolidation was provided by AMR. AMR is based in Colorado Springs. And though Donald Westcott had a contract with AMR, that ambulance was probably out of your fire district about 80+% of the time because the call volume was in Colorado Springs and not in Gleneagle. So one of the things that we identified really early on in the consolidation process was making sure that we provided a dedicated ambulance to your community. And in fact, we provide 2. So you have 1 advanced life support ambulance at Station 4, and then you have a 2nd advanced life support ambulance at Station 5. The 3rd ambulance resides at our Station 1 on Highway 105. Right now, between the 2 combined districts, we're about 4,000 calls, and you can see your insurance services office rating. The Donald Westcott district with Gleneagle is about a 2Y, and Tri-Lakes Monument is a 3Y. 1 being the best, 10 being the worst. So the district is all risk. So we offer a lot of specialty resources that you can see up there. Right now, essentially from May till about October, we're in our community every weekend going through wildfire mitigation through our chipping program. So essentially, we ask you to provide a little bit of sweat equity, clear out vegetation on your property, bring it to the curbside, and then our firefighters come through with a chipper and chip that material back onto your property to reduce the fire hazard. Next slide, please. So this is currently the combined fire district, which includes Donald Westcott and includes the Gleneagle community. And you can see that small little sliver fire district responsibility down to the south. Next slide. So again, we're all hazard. So structural firefighting, emergency medical services, as I mentioned, dedicated through our 3 advanced life support ambulances. We do provide technical rescue, fire prevention, public education, and of course our wildfire mitigation program. So where's the district headed? So right now we're finalizing the final step in the consolidation process, and I can't really speak on behalf of the fire district, but there will be a ballot measure in November. Right now, the Donald Westcott district has 2 mill levies, and we need to equalize those. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you as residents of our fire district will actually see a reduction in your mill levy with the consolidation of the 2 districts down from 21.9 to 18.4. So there will be a cost savings to all of you as homeowners in our fire district. And equally as important, you're getting improved and enhanced services with the 3 ambulances that we provide. But one of the things that we're working on is fire agency accreditation. So we're currently going through that process. And all that means is we're constantly looking at how we do business as a fire district and trying to find ways to improve service to you, the community. We did also create a strategic plan. It's a 5-year plan that will go through 2026. And basically that's kind of the vision for the fire district and where we're headed. Part of where we're headed is depicted in the pictures that you see there. The picture of the fire engine on the left is a brand new fire engine that cost about $850,000. And that fire engine was assigned to your Gleneagle fire station. So you have a brand new fire engine as well as a brand new ambulance in your station 4. The squad on the right is assigned to your Highway 83 station or station 5. And that provides additional command and control to larger scale incidents. And then the picture in the middle is a Type 3 wildland firefighting engine that's currently under construction. Much of what keeps me up at night, honestly, is our wildfire problem here in El Paso County. And certainly for those of you that endured the Black Forest fire or the Waldo Canyon fire, then you know what I'm talking about. And I was a victim of the Cameron Peak fire when I was living up in the Fort Collins area, but before coming down here to become the fire chief. And so we're committed to the wildfire problem, not only through that chipping mitigation effort, the purchase of specialized fire apparatus, but just recently we had an outside consultant complete 2 wildfire pre-plans for us, and those both reflect the areas of the Donald Westcott Fire Protection District. And essentially those are job aids or tools to help our first arriving company officers and chief officers in the event of a wildfire. So we've invested quite a bit in the wildfire problem here in Monument and Gleneagle area. Also, we're committed to a long-term capital improvement plan. So we expect to spend about $500,000 on Fire Station 5 in the next couple of months, just improving some of the living conditions there. And then we're committed to spending about $1.5 million to remodel Fire Station 4 in Gleneagle. But that's part of a broader plan. The picture on the left was a remodel of our Fire Station 1 last year. And then we've made some improvements to Fire Station 2, which is on the right there. And that station's located on Roller Coaster Road. So our financial health, Again, currently the Donald Westcott District pays 21.9 mills. The goal is to reduce your mill levy to the Tri-Lakes mill levy of 18.4 mills, and you can see the combined revenue of the two fire districts. The accounts are just kind of a breakdown of just some of the different accounts that we have to fund a lot of these capital improvement projects. And then, of course, the district is still growing. It doesn't take much to drive through North El Paso County to see the amount of growth that's going on, specifically in our fire district. But we do have some legislation that's concerning for special districts like ourselves, and we'll have to navigate that over the next couple of years. So my opinion of the fire district is that we're really just an extension of the community. A lot of the firefighters that work for us also live in the community. And so we're obviously actively finding ways to participate and service the community to the best of our ability. And again, we talked about the Chipping Wildfire Mitigation Program, and it's really about proud traditions and honoring the ways of the fire service, but also looking at the dynamic future and how the fire department needs to adapt with our growing community. So if you're not aware of the consolidation of the two fire districts, essentially that's going to provide an economy of scale to you. So instead of having two fire chiefs and two sets of administrative staff and really a lot of duplication of effort, this consolidation helps us to avoid some of those personnel costs. In addition to that, Tri-Lakes Monument was looking at building a fire station in the southwest corner of the district, which would be essentially Baptist and I-25 to the southwest. And because the Gleneagle station is located where it's at, that's allowed us to avoid having to spend considerable sums of money rebuilding or building a new fire station to service the district. Donald Westcott also had two water tenders, which Tri-Lakes Monument did not have, and we were able to avoid the cost of purchasing those apparatus at about $350,000 a piece. Of course, we get to standardize our apparatus, and we get our firefighters all working off of the same sheet of music through that consolidation. And again, it's a community partnership. I think one of the direct benefits that you will see is our ALS service. Again, you're not waiting for an AMR ambulance that's traditionally coming out of the Colorado Springs area. They're coming out of your Gleneagle Fire Station and your Highway 83 station, really reducing our response time to your medical emergencies when you dial 911. So I really would just encourage you to take a look at our website. There's a lot of information on there, including our strategic plan, the feasibility study that recommended the consolidation of the two districts. We produce an annual report, so you'll see that on there as well. Every month I provide a report to the two board of directors, and there's quite a bit of information on there as well. And you can go back, almost 2 years now, and kind of see what's been going on over the past 2 years. But essentially, we're a special district, and we do serve the town of Monument, but we're essentially unaffiliated with the town of Monument. So I hope that provides a little bit of clarification on our role and responsibility as it relates to serving you here in the Gleneagle community. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief Kovacs. Now our next speaker is going to be our new police chief with the town of Monument, Patrick Regan.
Test. Can you hear me? All right. As the boss said, my name is Patrick Regan. I'm the chief of police for the town of Monument. When this idea was brought to me, I was basically asked to put down on paper what the benefits would be of the town of Monument Police Department providing full-time law enforcement services in Gleneagle. I say that because I had some conversations beforehand to let you know that I'm not pushing this. This isn't coming from me. This was just, I want to provide some information. As the boss said, it's up to you to make the decision what to do with it. So hopefully that kind of explains the perspective as we go through this, because I will talk about some benefits, but I'm also going to talk about costs because I'll be honest about what it would mean to have us come in there full time. Okay. So a little bit about the Monument Police Department. We're budgeted for 27 officers. I currently have 26 with a 27th identified for hire. We're going to be one of the only police agencies that I really know of that's fully staffed. It's hard to find. The proposed budget for next year has an increase in officers. That's to provide some other tasks like detectives, school resource officers, things like that. We're very highly trained. We have a exceptionally well-trained retired military corporal that works for us that provides all of our training. So we are a very well-trained police department. And we have a dedicated tax revenue that goes to our police department. Next slide, please. So when we talk about what I see as the benefits, that's what we'll go through next. If we can go to the next slide. This is just a photo. If you look up in the top left corner, there's the blue dot. That's where our police department is now. Obviously, Gleneagle is down here on the bottom. In the coming years, the boss and I have been talking about trying to relocate to a more central location within the town, which would put us closer to Gleneagle as well. It's the only reason I have that map up there. So one of the biggest benefits would be just an increased patrol presence. If you guys were incorporated into the town, you'd have proactive drive-throughs during the day. Now, I had the same conversation I had earlier, and everyone says, Monument Police Department's already there. We're already providing services. 100% right, 100% true, and it would never change. And what that comes down to is backing up our El Paso County Sheriff's brothers and sisters, and we're not leaving people hanging if they're in a life-threatening situation. We're coming either way. What I'm talking about is the day-to-day calls for service. You have a theft, you have, I don't want to say minor crime because I'm sure to some people it's not a minor crime, but let's say it's not a violent crime where you may be told to call a phone number or go online and report a crime. Monument Police Department sends officers out to take those reports. We're not doing that in Gleneagle because it's not part of the town. Traffic enforcement in problem areas. Engage with home and business owners. These are just the things we do in the town. And like I said, I'm providing you with information. You all get to decide if that's enough for you to make a determination on where to go from here. And then the other thing my police department does is we investigate code enforcement crimes, which is your quality of life issues. All right, so I did tell you I would talk about the cost because I think I heard somebody say, this sounds like a police department money grab. It is not. I don't anticipate an annexation is going to be a lucrative thing for the police department. And I only say that to be completely honest with you. So my estimation is about 6,500 residents in Gleneagle. National average for the ratio of police officers to residents is 2.4 officers to 1,000 residents. That would mean I would have to hire 15 more cops. Has anyone read the news about how easy it is to hire cops right now? Very daunting task. I agree. Very, very safe. So that's awesome. And I appreciate your point of view because that's the discussions you all need to have with each other. Right. So like I said, if we could just kind of revert back to what I said when I started this. Pat Regan, not pushing this. Okay. So, but I do want to be open and honest about should that come to pass, this is what it would look like. That's all I'm trying to say. So 100% what you said, I totally agree. Thank you for being passionate. You have very good nonverbal cues that I know you're actually listening. So that's awesome. Again, not the salesman, but I hear you loud and clear. I hear you. Trust me.
And sir, that's exactly why we had this meeting. We wanted to hear that. If that's your message to us, that's exactly what we want to hear.
Yes. Okay, so I said we'd have to hire 15 more officers. The average salary and benefits for an officer is $95,000 a year, about $1.5 million in the first year just to have the cops hired. If I want to put them in cars, if I want to give them vests and uniforms and guns and all that, we'd add about another 600. So the estimated first year cost for the police department would be $2 million. The reason I say that is I am not looking to come in and get all this money. It costs a lot of money to do it. So again, I see you shaking your head. I'm not the one that's pushing this on anybody. I just want to be clear that if this were come to pass, this is what you would get from the police department. All right? You're welcome. I think that's it. Yes, sir.
I could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so currently we have general fund and we give them approximately $2.6 million from the general fund. And then we have a 1/2 cent sales tax that is charged throughout Monument that they receive revenue from that. And that generates about $1.7 million at this time. Property tax and sales tax. Do what? Yeah, your question was the general fund is funded by sales tax and property taxes. And that helps support the police department, but they're also funded by a 1/2 cent sales tax that is specifically dedicated to the police department.
Audience, could you go up to the,
If we could,
speaker, please?
We're gonna, just to be able to record everything when we get done, everybody come up to this mic right here, and that way we can get your questions and answer them, and everybody will hear you online. You're done. All right. So our next speaker is Jeremiah Reichert, our Assistant Public Works Director.
Testing. Okay. So I'm going to get into some information. I'm realizing it's probably a little bit more in depth than what we really want to get into tonight. It's just basically understanding from a operational standpoint what public services generally require and the costs associated to those. Again, I want to start this out with the clear understanding that Public Works really has no interest in promoting one way or another. Basically, that's a trickle down decision, which you will see as I start to present here. This one I'm going to kind of skip over very briefly, but basically when we're talking about, growing economies for cities or towns, there's generally 3 ways that comes into the public works realm, if you will. And one of those is to transfer payments between governments, rather federal, state, whatever, in terms of transportation, funds that come down as we talk about funding infrastructure. That's always in the news or politics. And then you have the transportation spending, which is used to, again, take that money, spend it on improving existing facilities or infrastructures. That's a very broad word because that includes streets, pipes, concrete bridges, those sorts of things. And then you have public-private sector debt or, funding that comes in from cities, developers, companies, or individuals as part of that development process. But I'm not going to go into the weeds with that, just a general understanding. Next slide. Thank you. This question here, I think, is really the one that I want to put front and forward, that this is really not an engineering question. It's really about the politics question, the policy. Who is wanting to annex into the town? That's really coming from the people and from the folks that are representing the people. So again, Public Works does not have a position on this. We're just trying to provide information on what would those costs be. And so the key thing for Public Works, what we would be asking the decision makers, if in fact this came across our desk to say we're going to annex, the first question for me will be, what is the level of service expectation? What have you been provided in the past? And what is the expectation moving forward? What I mean by levels of service, that's snow plowing, street repairs, anything from right-of-way maintenance such as mowing, everything that comes along with public works type of work. And that is associated with all the fixed assets. And then we would need to understand what are the operating expenses and the capital expenses in order to meet standards to take care of things in the future. So it's a very complex question. And then what is the trade-off? So this is the big question, obviously, when you're talking annexation or not, is, over the life cycle, to think about this in very granular or high level terms, is that for every dollar that you inherit an infrastructure, usually public works, as it trickles down, ends up with, roughly a dime. So it's not a huge amount of money. I heard the comment about, is this going to be a cash cow for the police department? It certainly would not be for a public works department. So just putting that out there, how would those revenues come in and how would it cover the costs? Across the nation right now, with inflation and things that are associated to construction costs, we're operating, and it's not just unique to Monument, Colorado Springs, or anywhere along the Front Range. Public works departments across the nation are operating underneath what they're bringing in. So it's really about those hard prioritization decisions that we make in terms of what are we doing and what are we delivering. So there's already a great need in terms of the things that we're already responsible for, let alone bringing in more infrastructure to maintain. And so what is the consequence of having an annual maintenance backlog, as I just spoke to, is it just continues to grow. The older stuff gets, it's never as new as the day that it's new, right? So cars drive down roads, degradation starts, weather starts, all of those sorts of things that lead into ultimately to decay. Next slide, please. Here is an example, I think, that sometimes is misunderstood about how the investments in infrastructure work. Is, the graph right now shows basically, funds that you're gathering at the initial investment when it's brand new, and over the course of the next 25, 24 years, it really depends on, again, life cycles change depending on what the infrastructure is, what its use is, the environment that it's exposed to. But what this is really showing is that in the beginning, it is looked as an asset. But as you can tell, by year 25, it truly does become a liability, meaning you're likely going to need to replace the road at some point, and that comes at a very high cost. And this graph did not reflect the ongoing maintenance and things that are associated with all the different types of infrastructures that you find in the public realm. But that's necessary because it's changing the oil, so to speak. Thank you. Here's just a quick overview of how we look at things in terms of a public works department and the funding allocations. And basically you have your capital outlay, which is your major reconstruction projects when it comes due, when it's time to do replacement, or when you're building new to expand based on growth. Then you have your maintenance, your ongoing maintenance functions to keep things in good order at the most optimal time. And then you have, your highway and your traffic services. Again, that's about, keeping things, operating efficiently. It's about also what the community expects, meaning if you have a lot of, landscaping, those sorts of things, you need to upkeep that based on what the community was originally built for and what they're asking for. So just a quick overview. Next slide. So the question really does come down to, is public infrastructure an asset or a liability? This is talked about a lot, at least, with the engineering geeks in the room and across the industry. Are these really truly assets? I think initially, yes, they are, because they are provided to provide the community ability to commute and have access to basic amenities. So generally speaking, yes, they are. But what this is telling is that over time, those things degrade. And often when infrastructure first comes into play and we're collecting permits and all the fees that are associated with new development, couple decades down the road, well, the bill comes due, right? We got to rebuild roads. We got to do major improvements. And those things, I think, sometimes are overlooked when we're talking about, is it an asset? Is it a liability? And it's just like your house, right? Like your roof at some point is going to need to be replaced. Your car motors are going to have to be replaced, or the vehicle itself will have to be replaced. Roads and infrastructure are essentially the same thing. Next slide, please. So when we start talking about, just generally speaking, lifespans of infrastructures, different types of infrastructures, I rolled this up into, 3 basic categories. You have your roadway infrastructure is anywhere between 25 to 30 years of its useful life, meaning it, after that, you're going to have to make some serious improvement, if not replace. You have sewer infrastructure, sanitary storm sewer functions or utilities. Those are between 40 and 50 years, depending on the materials that are used to build those infrastructures. There's varying types. We're not going to dive into that at this level. And then you have your water mains. Those are anywhere from 75 to 100 years, again, based on construction practice, what materials were used, and so on. And then for all of these infrastructures, you ultimately end up with things that weigh in on that in terms of the condition over the lifespan. You have traffic loading, freeze thaw, soil movement, erosion, all of the things that start, impacting the infrastructure and lowering its value in terms of serviceability or reliability, better yet. So this was just kind of a general breakdown of what that looks like. Next slide, please. And again, we hear about this specifically around election times, right? Is there ever a time where we have more money than infrastructure needs? I can say 25 years in this business, no. There's always a greater need than we have funding for. So it really does truly come down to balancing our priorities, understanding the things that we need to do first, and what we're capable to do with the amount of funding that we do receive. Next slide, please. This is a very busy slide. Again, I don't have a lot of history about the Gleneagle area, so I don't know what's been provided by the county. I don't know what their costs are. Again, we are not in a position where we're promoting this. We're just trying to answer, like, if this came to us, what would this typically cost? So I pulled some information off of the Federal Highway Administration. And so if you were looking to reconstruct, a road, you're basically between $969,000 and $985,000 per lane mile. Again, that varies from, region, state. This is just very high level numbers. But if we averaged all of the roads out, again, this is approximation for Gleneagle. We basically said, well, it's probably on average 30 feet wide for each one of your roadways. You're talking about 2.9 to 2.95 per mile to rebuild. To do an overlay, it's the same equation essentially. It's just, you're obviously not reconstructing the entire facility. So you're at about 100 or 1 million to 1.68 million per mile to just do an asphalt overlay where you remove a little bit of the top surface and repave it. Next slide. So coming back to if we were to look at, if this was brought to us to say, well, what would this cost? Again, these are very rough numbers, but they're fairly common for industry. So if we were to take over streets, we're going to basically need, from a maintenance standpoint, about 48,000 per mile. That includes your snow plowing, your street patching, your pothole repairs, all of those things that go into changing the oil, so to speak. Your parks, they do right-of-way mowing, they do litter control, they have all sorts of different functions. Again, that's roughly around 36,000 per mile. And then you have fleet. The fleet is what takes care of all of the equipment associated to that work. Again, these are very rough numbers, but that equates to roughly 15,000 per mile. And then, water, which again, that wasn't really thought about in the discussions, but it's there. That cost you roughly $17 per lineal foot of pipe. Again, very high level numbers. Next slide. So then you start looking at, again, how would we even begin to assess what it would require? We have really no data to go from because we're not really anywhere with this. It's just been a discussion point. We're just simply looking at it from, I guess the 30,000, 50,000 foot view. And so not having any information from the county, we went out there and did a quick assessment based on some general understanding. And so you start looking at what do road conditions look like, and how would that impact like your capital need and your maintenance need. Next slide, please. So with that, it's a lot of information to take in. Again, we came up with a rough number that said basically we would need 25 million in capital need. That doesn't necessarily mean that comes from, that if annexation was the position that the community wanted, it doesn't mean that the community comes up with that. There's some discussions that happen in the background about county releasing those infrastructures over to the city or to the town, and then those negotiations begin. And then from an ongoing maintenance standpoint, the changing the oil, that's about 1.8 million annually just to provide the snow plowing, the crack sealing, the pothole repairs. These are numbers that the county is likely already spending. So again, this is not a position of the Town of Monuments Public Works Department. This is just simply to provide information based on the inquiry that came to us. And so with that, one thing that was not calculated was how many more staff members are going to be required. The Town of Monument right now, to give you an idea, currently has roughly 29 miles of roadway responsibility. We basically equated that the Gleneagle area is roughly around 18. So that would put that into perspective of what would that do for a public works department. It's almost doubling our responsibility. So that would come with more staff, more vehicles, more equipment. But that's basically all I have to share. Again, I think it's very important to understand that these are just discussions and we wanted to provide some information. And that's as far as I know from a public works standpoint. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeremy. So I know that was a lot of information. That includes our presentations and, I know you've got a lot of questions, but I want to reiterate the fact that, we just brought this up to have a discussion with you. We brought this up so that you could voice your opinions, and now is the time for you to, if you need to, step up to the mic and come speak to us. And then also, William, we're going to allow people online to speak to. So we'll probably take 4 or 5 from the audience, and then we'll take 4 or 5 from the online.
Sounds good, Mike. I'll do it back and forth. Somebody online, somebody in the building.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Gentlemen, I want to thank you, first of all, for taking your time away from your families to share this information, especially you, Chief. Chief, thank you very much. We appreciate the fact that you guys are providing us with some great information. Mr. Kovacs, I do have a question for you. Is the fire department consolidation dependent upon this annexation?
It is not.
Thank you. Okay. So the LOS is definitely a quid pro quo situation. I don't believe you're changing the oil, as you put it, or your quick assessment numbers that you came to us with help us see that it would be in any way beneficial for Gleneagle. First of all, for me, having come from a town in Tennessee by the name of Franklin, Tennessee, and seen what they have done with their town, I am not inspired by what I see since I have come here. It's only been 3 years, but I have people that live around me that have been here for 20 and 30 years. I'm not inspired by what the Town of Monument has done with their downtown area to want to join this party. I do believe, having been in real estate for 25 years, having worked for developers and builders, what I'm seeing is that the Town of Monument has allowed developers and builders to infest this town like locusts. I believe that these developers have been allowed to overpopulate the town, and your coffers should be adequately supplied by that. This timing to move the annexation of Gleneagle seems curiously greed-driven to me, considering the new tax assessments especially. Mayor, your little story about several people saying that they wanted to be annexed by Monument, and you're saying that this is a new idea, that it's not been discussed by the council, the staff, et cetera, is very disingenuous, and I'm embarrassed for you. You started this meeting with a statement that said over the last several years, it has been a part of this conversation. And this type of money grab, and I know y'all didn't just throw this information together since July 4th. This kind of a presentation seems curiously greedy, considering the fact that we've all just had a huge reassessment. So I ask you, which is it? Is somebody blowing smoke up our skirts, or is somebody just proselytizing and blowing all kinds of BS at us? And I ask you that, Mayor, because if you're going to represent this town and ask us to join you and support you, I think you need to be a lot more honest with us.
Sure, I have no problem responding. I have been honest with you. There has been zero discussions amongst the council or staff, and you can check the records, about annexing Gleneagle ever. The only time Gleneagle comes up is on a map in a 3-mile radius we're required to provide the state.
Understood?
If you don't want to join the town, it'll be no skin off my back. It'll be a lot less work for us to deal with. It'll be a lot less work for the residents to deal with. There'll be no requirement to come up with the money to pay for a vote to put it on a ballot. And the town won't have to worry about the legal fees that would be required to create a half a dozen ordinances that would encompass bringing you in. So I have no reason to lie. There's no money. As you could hear from the town staff, we're not making any money off this idea. Okay, so I'm sorry if you felt I was being disingenuous, but to be honest, we've got other council members here. You could ask them too. You can go back and check the video. You can check the minutes. There's no mention of Gleneagle.
Okay, all righty. Perhaps I misunderstood you, but I want to encourage all of my people here. Everybody, if you like our walking trails, if you like what we've got and you want to keep it, you need to help Glenn keep this going. We don't need anybody else to come in and take care of it. We all need to volunteer to take care of those trails and to help Glenn get that done and increase your HOA. Just give a little more. My God, come on, guys. We're going to keep Gleneagle, okay? That's what I want to do. Thank you, gentlemen.
There's a question from the online audience. This is to Chief Kovacs earlier. Could you define the potential annex area boundaries?
Could you repeat the question? I
Yes,
had a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
no problem. Could you define the potential annex area boundaries?
Can I define the annex area boundaries?
Yes.
I cannot.
I can.
I mean, the fire district is already serving the Gleneagle community. So again, annexation doesn't really play into your fire protection and EMS delivery.
Thank you.
Yes, there is. And we can provide that to you on, I think we have it online right now. Yes, sir.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Is Colorado Springs the alternative?
So Colorado Springs or doing nothing are the alternatives, right? You can remain in unincorporated El Paso County as long as you want until such time as the county says you can't. We have no control over that.
No, I think I've seen recently in the press where Colorado Springs has raised the issue of annexing Gleneagle. Am I incorrect?
No, you're not incorrect. They did raise the issue of annexing you. It is what spurred the two couples that approached me at the 4th of July parade, street fair thing, to say to me that they were aware Colorado Springs was thinking about annexing and wanted to know if we would. Seriously, I couldn't answer yes or no to them because I wasn't aware of any of it.
Okay,
But
well,
your choices would be to do nothing, go with Colorado Springs.
I would
go with
rather have Monument than Colorado Springs.
No, thank you, gentlemen, for taking your time. We've been here for 25 years and we escaped Minnesota, which is just nothing but a socialist hellhole. And one of the real delights we've had is understanding that we live in a slice of the county. We're not part of Monument. We're not part of Colorado Springs. Our streets, almost every street in Gleneagle is a county maintained road. We needed curbs and gutters. The county came and put them in. Was there a little adjustment in our tax bill? Maybe. But we don't need streets and parks. We don't want any parks. We have some of our private trails, which are private land. We control them. When there's someone who tries to set up a little encampment, we kick them out of there. We can get the county deputies or a group of citizens. But if all of a sudden this is all under a city park umbrella, now all of a sudden the citizens cannot say, let's get these people out of here because, oh no, you got to be protected. We got to Californicate this place. We can't kick them out anymore. And that's something that really concerns me. And just keeping all the private trails and things private. It's private land. We all have a share in that. And I don't want to see that go away. And we've got great water. Denella Water and Sewer is one of the best utilities in the country. They've gotten awards for that. They're fantastic. We have Mountain View Electric. They're great. We don't want Springs utilities. We don't want Monuments conglomeration of utilities. We don't want any of that. We've got water and sewer. We've got power. We've got good county roads. We do not need bureaucracy. And we've got like I said, we've got great law enforcement. We've got the deputies. We've got a citizenry that is very vigilant. And again, we are blessed with the fact that we don't really have many, if any, liquor stores, bars, middle schools, high schools, all the things that generate problems. Gleneagle doesn't have that, so we don't need it. We just don't need annexation. It would only,
I just want to clarify something. Even if you wanted annexation, just say that water and sewer is not included in that. You have Denala. Denala would stay your provider. It wouldn't be the town of Monument. It would stay your provider for water and sewer.
Yeah. Well, that's a question. That's one thing we have to worry about is our water being taken.
Yeah.
And we got great water up here. We don't want to compromise that. There's just so many potential pitfalls. We've got a great thing going.
Right. And that's what we wanted to hear.
We've got a great thing going.
Yep. We appreciate you.
It's a concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got somebody online, Mr. John Ross. Give me one moment.
Go ahead, Will.
Mr. Ross.
Hello, I'd like to know how it would affect school districting for our kids. Thank you.
School districts.
How it will affect the school district.
No, it wouldn't affect the school district at all.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here and allowing us to speak. When you opened up the discussion, you mentioned that you would be discussing pros and cons of the annexation or potential annexation. We heard a lot of the pros. We heard from the peoples, many of the cons. I'd like for you on the board, as you mentioned, you're going to discuss some of the cons, to let us know from your viewpoint what the cons are and why this is not necessarily in your best interest. When there's a lot of production that was put into the video and the presentation, and for that to come from somebody putting their finger in the air from a discussion on July 4th is a bit confusing. You mentioned that there are people and that there are representatives of those people who had come to you. Okay, I understand you can't single out individuals. I understand that. But if you have a representative of people, I'd like to know their viewpoint. If we're going to have an educated decision, what is it that's promoting their thought as far as coming forward to you and saying, I want to be included? Because I'm missing it. I'm just not really understanding. And one last thing, I'd like to take part of the democratic process, if you would. simply yay or nay, hands in the air or down. And I think that might be a pretty good indicator as far as how the room is. Thank you very much.
Thank you for holding this meeting tonight. We really appreciate it. I will have to say I am totally against this. The first thing that I wanted to point out is from the fire district briefing. My understanding from what you briefed, there is no change in the fire district, whether you annex Gleneagle or you do not annex Gleneagle. What's going to happen is going to happen. It's already in the works. So I don't understand why that presentation was made tonight, because I think it confuses the situation. I did have a question about the school boundaries that has already been answered. I haven't heard anything about the increase in taxes. In the past 4 years, I've bought 3 brand new vehicles down in Colorado Springs because I knew that there was a difference in the tax rates. El Paso County Incorporated is about 5.13%. Monument, I think, is 8.63%. And Colorado Springs is 7.83%. I saved over $4,000 when I bought my vehicles because of the lower tax rate. All I had to do was tell the dealer that I lived in unincorporated El Paso County. So you haven't addressed the tax rate situation there. Finally, the boundary map is a big thing. Okay, I technically live in Falcon's Nest, but I am on the east side of Struthers. Falcon's Nest is divided in half by Struthers Road. But from that vague map that you displayed, it looks like that our part of Falcon's Nest is being grouped into Gleneagle. So I think you need to be more specific with your boundary maps on what you are calling Gleneagle, because even the neighborhoods that are north and south of Bathurst Road, but border Struthers, are not part of Gleneagle. And so I think that's something that you guys need to clarify when you talk about annexing Gleneagle. You need to have that boundary map so that the residents know what you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. We understand that this is a learning process for us too. This is a session where we're here to listen and to learn from you. And that is definitely a good point. We put that map together on what we know Gleneagle to be, and we met with some of the people that live there, but we definitely are going to be, if this would go forward, we'd be assessing that map and making changes to it. As far as the sales tax for the town of Monument, it's 7.63.
Okay,
The extra 1 cent that Gleneagle pays is for PPRTA,
okay.
because you are in the county and you're part of the PPRTA.
And
Now,
fi-
some of Monument also was annexed at a time to where we are part of PPRTA too, and we pay that same extra 1 cent to the PPRTA.
okay. And finally, my last thing that I wanted to point out, Monument has been approving a lot of multifamily housing, a lot of apartments. So you're looking at taking on already a ton of individuals and families that are living in the multifamily housing and also trying to take on Gleneagle at the same time. And I kind of think that might be a stretch for Monument.
Yeah, and
Just
to that point, one of the points I was going to make earlier is one of the pros for joining the town of Monument is you can run for office, you can vote for ballot measures, and you can control that discussion.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I can say that I'm totally against it, but I came in here with I guess my question, I got one question. How long has this been planned? Because I found out about this meeting like an hour and a half before I got here. You think that with all these nice slides and everything else, and everybody's got a presentation, that there'd have been a mailing to the 7,000 people in Gleneagle saying we're going to have this meeting? Now there's a pretty good crowd here, but nowhere near. I mean, when was this announced and how was it announced? Next door?
No, it was announced on our website and several social media sites last week.
Well, I'm 66 years old. I don't do a lot of social media, and I don't go to Nextdoor, and I don't go to the Town of Monuments website.
Right.
So now we're sitting here with a ton more people that could have voiced probably their own opinions. I can't see how this came together with 2 or 3 couples. I mean, I just don't understand that.
It was before that. And
Well, oh, so now
I never said.
that's
I
totally
never
different
said-
than what you just
Hold on
said,
a
Mayor.
second. I never said that the start of it was July 4th. I just said people approached me on July 4th. There are people that are not, I had no idea that this was coming in front of the council. It still hasn't come in front of the council. This was done outside the purview of the town council. Okay, I found out about the meeting maybe 2 weeks before everybody else did.
Yeah.
I don't have a name for you. I don't have a name
No.
for you. I don't know who they are. You could, it could be dropped by you all. I'm not pursuing this.
Well, thank you.
So I'm Rebecca, and I've lived in Gleneagle. I'm talking. I've lived in Gleneagle for over 30 years. So I have a lot of history in the area. I was very disappointed that I randomly got on Nextdoor 2 days ago and saw that this was posted on the 25th. None of my neighbors had been notified. I printed it off and I canvassed my neighborhood and walked around and talked to everybody to let them know about this. I don't think that was very fair. The only people who knew about it was monument people, which, like was said before, we don't get on your city site. Why should we or would we? Jeremy, you had a lot of information in there, but it goes with your job for sure. But I have a question for you, Mr. Jeremy Reichert, Assistant Public Works Director. You said down in one of your slides, it said, you mentioned, are your current existing citizens and residents of monuments satisfied with the performance of your department? The question was there, but not the answer.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
On your slide, you said one of the questions that you would have is, are your existing residents of monument satisfied with the performance of your department? There was a question there, but no answer. As we drive up, as we see monument and the growth that we've seen, it looks totally out of control. You're overexpanded and out of control. Which brings us to this question. Wasn't it, I guess maybe the town manager, I don't know how long you've been town manager.
5 years.
Mr. Mike Foreman. Wasn't it just a few years ago that Gleneagle, Donald the Water helped you guys out with water because you were short?
With what?
You were short with water. Didn't Donald the Water help Monument out just a few years ago within the last few years because you guys were short on water?
I've been here 5 years and I don't recall any
Yeah.
incident such as that.
Does anybody remember that? Does anybody remember that? Okay, maybe it was 6 years ago then.
We don't have a connection to, so
All right.
when let me explain that real quick.
And are
When you talk
you,
about-
well, let's move on. Are you currently having a pipeline brought up from Southern Colorado Springs for more water for Monument?
So I think what you're talking about is Triview. Triview is a special district
Okay.
within the town of Monument.
Oh, okay.
But-
It was Triview within the town of Monument.
Let
They
me
brought our water.
finish.
All right.
Triview is a separate district that has a separate water and sanitation system than the town of Monument.
Yeah.
The town of Monument only serves the western
All right.
side of I-25.
All right, we accept your answer. We understand that now. It was within Monument city limits that they borrowed Donald the Water's water. Gleneagle has their own water system. We have our own wells. We have our own aquifer. That's totally different from Denver. Not with Colorado Springs. We have our own water. I think this is a water grab. You've overbuilt a monument and you don't have the water for it. And that's what this is about. And yeah, you could say, oh, we're going to keep your same water district. Well, we probably would, but somehow they would still merge. You'd still want our water. We've seen that huge growth up there. And then it would be, oh, well, now that we've combined Donald the Water and Monument Water, let's go ahead and build streets on those open spaces because there's more tax dollars. So obviously, I'm a no to this, but I do appreciate the fire department's presentation. That was very good. We appreciate the fire department and everything you do. And of course, we appreciate the police department as well.
I have a question from online. This is from Karina. Will Antelope Trails Elementary remain the same? Let me read it one more time. Will Antelope Trail Elementary remain in District 20 if Gleneagle is annexed, or would it become a Monument School District 38 school? Thank you.
The school districts are self-governing and have nothing to do with the municipality of Monument or El Paso County. So there would be no change to whatever the school districts are doing today.
My name is John Davis. I was curious today on how I would be personally impacted financially, tax-wise. So I looked up online and it says your residential tax rate in Monument is 1.4%. When I apply that to my current tax rate, based on the valuation the county throws out, that would increase my taxes by $486 annually.
Our mill levy is 5.75 mils on your property tax. And for a $550,000 house, that would increase your taxes about $170 a year, about $14 a month.
So what do you suppose that 1.4% was that I saw online?
I can meet with you later and maybe look at it. That's the only thing I could tell you, but
Okay.
that's what our mill levy is. It's 5.75.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Evans.
Good evening. Just so everyone knows, been a Gleneagle resident for over 20 years. Worked with El Paso County Sheriff's Office from the mid-90s until 2015. So very familiar with what we do and don't have in Gleneagle. And thank goodness we do live in a very safe neighborhood. That's why I chose to move my family there. But gentlemen, I wanted to take just a second before the meeting ended tonight and thank you. This is off topic from the annexation question, but this starts all the way from the mayor down through city council, through city administration to the chiefs, and your support in sending your resources into Gleneagle. And I think that's one thing we do need to acknowledge and we need to understand. On my streets, 2 months ago, we had a gentleman with a gun that was walking around the neighborhood. And by the time I got there, there were already 2 Monument police officers there. And throughout my career, that has been something that you have supported throughout your careers. So this is something that regardless of an annexation question, there is positives and negatives, folks. The question came up, has Colorado Springs talking about annexing us? Yes, they are. They have a map that was completed in 2020 that shows us as one of their areas of interest of annexing. So I don't work for the city of Monument, but I have been a resident for 20 some years. And they are interested, whether it be now, whether it be soon, whether it be in the future. Colorado Springs is looking at annexing us. And I agreed with the gentleman. I'd much rather be a part of the town of Monuments, as my kids have gone to D38 in Palmer Ridge and Lewis Palmer, than part of Colorado Springs. So thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to be heard. Mayor, please pass it along with the council and chiefs. We thank you for your continued support. When we need you, you have always come in and helped us. And working at the sheriff's office, all the way up to the chief deputy level, I made decisions on how many deputies were going to be staffed in the area up here. This is known as District 1 for the sheriff's office. And I hope we all understand how many deputies are in District 1 for any shift, 1. And that's not going to change. They also cover Black Forest, they cover Palmer Lake and those type of things. So we need to realize that you don't, your number of officers or deputies don't depend on population. It depends on calls for service. And because we are safe, you don't need a cop or a fireman until you really need them. So we thank you for being there when we need you. Okay. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
I have an online question from Jody Martinez. If Gleneagle was to annex into Colorado Springs, would we lose Monument Fire?
Yeah, so the Monument Fire District is just that. It's a special district. So with any annexation from a municipality, that essentially trumps special districts. So in the event Colorado Springs was to annex the Gleneagle community, Essentially, we would have to negotiate the sale of our fire apparatus and our 2 fire stations. And then most concerning to me is the loss of our personnel. We'd have 24 unemployed firefighters that would be looking for work. And so that's my greatest concern as the fire chief. My people are our greatest asset and we can't do it without them. And I would hate for any one of them to lose their job because of an annexation. So.
And, my name is John Black. I'm a homeowner in Gleneagle of 2 years now. I've lived in the Front Range for 28 years. And I just wanted to clarify on something that was mentioned earlier. Were you saying that you do not know the force behind organizing this meeting, Mayor?
No, I was not behind the organization of the idea or the meeting itself for the
Okay,
annexation.
yeah, I just wanted to get clarification on that because since this is a public hearing, you'd think there'd be a person on the public record who wanted this held. So that I kind of agree with some of the people that were concerned about that. I personally just wanted to make my statement on this opinion known that I personally do not want to join Monument or Colorado Springs for that matter. I'd prefer that we stay part of unincorporated El Paso County. That said, I appreciate all of your time. I definitely appreciate our fire department. My family lost a home in the Waldo Canyon fire, so I understand just how serious wildfire is here. And I appreciate all the efforts of the police department. One thing I was curious about is, I mean, there's a talk about there would be pros talked about. I'm just curious what really would be the pros here. It looks like for the Public Works Department, it's not really a pro at all. And I'm also curious, like, what is the impact to the monument citizens as well? It seems like this might not be the best outcome for either set of constituencies. And that's my question.
So first, I would like to say I wish the people that approached me at the fair showed up.
Sure.
Okay, that would have been great.
No, yeah, and I'm not trying to attack you, by the way. I understand this is not a fun place to be in, probably.
As far as though to your question as to the impact. Gleneagle is as close to Monument as it can get.
Yep.
The impact is already felt. You feel the impact of Monument, as has been discussed, the growth, the overgrowth. And Monument feels the impact of Gleneagle, as well as we feel the impact of Woodmore and Kingsdeer and Arrowwood. We're the community at large, we're already baked in together. So whether you were to annex or not, I don't think there would be necessarily an impact to the daily lives of any of the residents.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Greg Campbell, I have a question and comment. It wasn't clear for me from the map. What is the eastern boundary of Gleneagle?
So like I stated earlier, that's still being worked on if we want to go forward. If the decision
Approximately?
is that we don't want to go forward, it's not going to be an issue. But right now we're looking at Roller Coaster Road.
Okay, all right, thank you. So when you talk about comparative impact, US Census data shows that since 2000, the growth in Gleneagle was about 60%. The growth in Monument is about 450%. So the impact is not equal, okay? Monument has a lot more impact on us than Gleneagle would ever have on Monument, all right? I believe that the police and fire will always be there for us. I think the real issue is around public works. The presentation that you gave really gave the impression is that there'll never be enough money to meet all the needs. Now, if you're going to need additional budget on the order of millions, the only way you get that from 6,000 or 7,000 residents is increased taxes and fees on the order of 1,000. You can't say that my taxes are only going to go up $150 and somehow multiply that out to a budget increase that's going to be in the millions. So the numbers are never going to work out, right? And so what do? You have to prioritize. Well, where's the priority going to be? It's always going to be downtown Monument, right? For infrastructure, it's not going to be Gleneagle. So for those reasons, I'm opposed to this.
Go ahead.
My name is Kenneth Judd, 26-year resident of Gleneagle. I just wanted to clarify something. There have been several comments here tonight and several more comments on various social media, particularly next door, that Gleneagle, we in Gleneagle are also facing an annexation threat. That word's been used from Colorado Springs. So today I communicated with Dave Donaldson, who is a Colorado Springs City Council member and someone I know personally, hold in very high esteem. He says, and I'm reading his text, I have heard absolutely nothing about annexing Gleneagle. Gleneagle would have to come to Colorado Springs and request annexation. We don't initiate annexations. Property owners come to the city and request them. My point in clarifying this is that we do not face a threat of annexation. We do have the choice, as a couple of you have pointed out, of remaining in unincorporated county, which is certainly my position. I also would like to comment that this entire production seems to have been based on the comments of a couple of couples at a street fair in Monument. This is a lot of smoke and air based on a conversation in a street with two people who purport to live in Gleneagle, but you don't even know for sure they do. So I think it's evident that the advantage in this lies with Monument, particularly in property taxes and online sales taxes. And I was previously on the Denali Water and Sanitation Board for 10 years, so I understand the water situation. It's not a concern, but those other two are concerns. Thank you.
I'm Angie Salmon, and I have bought two beautiful homes here in not Colorado Springs, in Gleneagle. And we chose Gleneagle because it is unincorporated. I just did have a question, kind of segue on what that young man just said. We are still, I'm going to speak for all of us, a little confused as who organized this meeting. There had to be a person to call the church. There had to be a person to do all this, to contact y'all. So who, do we know that person or who it is?
So I'm the organizer. I'm the one that got staff to call the church, got every staff to put together all of the information that we presented to you based on the fact that we wanted to hear from you as citizens of Gleneagle to see if this is an issue that you would like to do. What we're hearing tonight is it's not. And so what our next step would be, based on what we've heard today, is to do nothing.
Well, I would dare, thank you so much. I would dare say if you are against this, to stand up. Thank you.
You bet.
St. Joe Mercado. Everyone's talking about Gleneagle, but we live in Pleasant View Estates. And you're saying all the way to Roller Coaster Road, that's excluding over 350 additional homes that were not notified. Everything said Gleneagle. Yeah, but I mean, are we included in this? I mean, it's important.
Like I said, with the map, that's not a finished product. We still have a lot of work to do on that. If tonight you would have said, yes, we want to come to the town of Monument. What I hear tonight is that you don't. And so we're not, that's what I wanted to save staff time on, is we don't want to go any further with this if we hear from you that you don't want to go any further with it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lori Jones. I've been a resident of Gleneagle for 27 years. My position is I'm vehemently opposed to this idea. However, to say that, I would like to know what specifically you would need to proceed either way. I mean, our little community isn't even really represented here because nobody really knew about the meeting. And so, I mean, it's not even really fair to say we're shutting it down or we're going forward, because there's, I don't know, 100 people. I don't even know how many people here, not many. So what is the next step for real? Because we didn't receive any information in my mailbox, on my door. Nobody notified us. And so as strong as this meeting is against the idea, I just think I don't know about everybody else, but I'm asking if there's anything further, there has to be communication regardless. This is not a representation of our
So-
neighborhood.
I think the gentleman covered it earlier. The next step would be from y'all. If you wanted to annex it into the town in the future, you would reach out to us.
I see.
Yeah.
My name is Gary Nelson, been a resident for 7 years in Gleneagle. And I'd like to speak out in support of what's happening right now in the merger of the Donald Westcott and Tri-Lakes Monument Fire Department. That's has been an extremely, in my opinion, extraordinary effort and planning for about 20 years in the unification of those two fire departments. The increase in service for the ambulance support, that's been tremendous, especially given AMR support and lack thereof in terms of the distance they travel. The increase in service, the reduced mill levy rate going from 21.9 to 18.4. This is something that this audience is still going to have to vote on to finalize this in the future. So if you hear nothing else, hear this fire department merger and how important that is and has been to the improved in service to our area in Gleneagle and Monument. It's benefited both areas. I'm talking, sorry, I can't hear and talk at the same time. Financial sustainability. This has been a plan that's been put together and it's been so well coordinated and financed and researched into the future. I've attended some of the board meetings and it's incredible that things are being looked at 5 years down the road in purchasing so that we can take advantage of COVID related shortages in the fire department, equipment, suppliers, and the manufacturing of the vehicles that are going into fulfill the needs for the development of the future homes in this area. The mitigation through the chipping. I mean, these guys are out there with a little bit of help from the community. And that's something y'all ought to applaud yourself on, is getting out and putting those burnable supplies out on the street. And then these hardworking men and women in the blue coming out and chipping that and putting it back into the soil. What a huge economic benefit to the neighborhoods. The economies of scale have been tremendous. The training efforts, the cohesiveness. It used to be was north of Baptist was one, south of Baptist was the other. And all of that has congealed into a consolidated effort for the firemen and women to get together and do great work, training on the same nodules, doing the same work side by side. It's been so fantastic. And we thank Chief Kovacs and Tri-Lakes Monument Board for that, and the Donald Westcott Board for seeing the vision come together. It's been huge. I do want to speak to the police for a moment. The fact that you're that well staffed just has to say a lot about what Monument's doing in their leadership program, their training program, and to retain that level of staffing. It's incredible. I can't get my glass replaced on a window for 6 months because they can't hire people. And I know the training requirements for what you need to have and the recruiting requirements is outstanding for Monument to be able to attract and only have one vacancy soon to be filled. So that speaks huge. So what I would like to say is, and this was touched on briefly by Chief Kovacs, there are impacts if we were to be annexed by City of Colorado Springs. There are impacts to what would happen to our local fire services and vehicles and staffing. And I just want to reiterate that again. Not saying that we will be annexed by Colorado Springs, not saying we'll be annexed by Monument. If we stay the way we are and we all vote in support of the final step to have this unification happen, life is good. But if there was an annexation into Colorado Springs, this is my question. Chief Kovacs, could you tell us the impacts again of what would happen should we be annexed into Colorado Springs, the impacts that would have with your current plans that have been most excellent and beneficial to the patrons monument and Donald Westcott Fire districts? I just want to hear the summary because he touched on it, but he didn't give the full impact.
Yeah, so we would be, we'd have to have a conversation with Colorado Springs about the sale of the two fire stations. The one on Highway 83 and then the Gleneagle Fire Station. More than likely, we would sell that property to the city. We would probably retain our apparatus, but we would have 24 total employees from those two fire stations that we would either somehow have to try to absorb into our district or lay them off.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time tonight, gentlemen.
So I'm a bit perplexed. I think we have a major trust issue as a result of maybe misunderstandings. But I'm standing here because two couples approached the mayor of Monument and stated that when can we be annexed? Yet the mayor can't even tell me they verified that they're from Gleneagle. You know, I grew up in trust but verified environment. So that's one statement. The other statement I have is the communication plan is abysmal, as you heard from many people. I would never look at the monument's website, nor attend a monument council meeting. So if this does go forward, if you all decide that all these people sitting here who said no are irrelevant, then I would like to have a robust communication plan. I heard about this on the 5 o'clock news on Channel 5. That's unacceptable. So based on what you're hearing from this audience, which is greater than 4 or 2 couples, I'm hoping that the take back is, no, we're not hearing anybody who really wants to get their arms around it. We can deal with Colorado Springs later if they do present themselves. So again, thank you for your time. And we had a show of hands or show of feet, I guess. So hopefully you're going to take that forward.
Another thing, I might be incorrect on this, but when I looked at annexation for Colorado, it stressed that you have to have 50% approval of the membership of the community you're attempting to annex. Is that correct? 51%. Okay. Okay.
Yes, and once again, like the gentleman said earlier, it would have to be brought forward by you, not us.
See, my question is, you keep saying that the Antelope Trails is not going to be affected, that it's going to be the same. I don't understand how that could be when we pay taxes into District 20, not into 38. So that's one of my questions. I feel like you don't have all the information. We're having this meeting here and you don't really know and the boundaries also, you don't know the boundaries. It seems to me like if you're going to have a meeting, we should know what the boundaries are.
Yeah, so what for the school district, if you look at your tax bill, you pay taxes to a lot of different governmental entities and they have their own government structure. Your school district is just like that. So they have nothing to do with the town of Monument, nothing to do with the city of Colorado Springs or El Paso County. They have their own government structure. So when you pay that tax, that goes to them. It doesn't go through us. We don't control their boundaries.
Right, I understand, but if we pay taxes for our kids to go to a District 20 school, but now we're part of Monument, that doesn't make sense to me.
No, you would still be part of District 20. District 38 that lies within Monument is larger than Monument, just like the Monument Fire District is larger than the town boundaries of Monument.
You're going to have a school sitting in another town.
D38 has only one school in the entire town limits. The rest of D38 schools are only in the county. I don't know what D20's makeup is, whether county or Colorado Springs, but they're not in Monument. So the overlay for D20 would not change if you were in Monument or in Colorado Springs, just like D38's overlay would not change. The only thing that would change by an annexation by either municipality would be the municipality's boundaries. The school districts would remain the same, which means the tax for those school districts would remain the same.
A little confusing to me, but
It is, if you were to look at all of the overlays for all the special districts, for all the schools, for the water, for the metro districts, it's hard to discern where you fall into all that, but your tax bill breaks it down. And if you look at each line item within the tax bill, it'll tell you exactly what district you're a part of.
For the boundaries, who decides that? It seems to me like we should have, for this meeting, you should already know the boundaries.
So this is a preliminary meeting. We just wanted to hear from you and hear your comments and know whether or not we wanted to go forward. To do something like that, we'd have to work with the county and spend a lot of time doing that. So we took a preliminary map of Gleneagle and looked at that and said, we're going to take this. We worked with Gleneagle Water. We worked with the fire department and looked at what they showed us to be the boundaries. And so if we were to go forward, like I mentioned earlier, we would do an in-depth survey of what are the boundaries of Gleneagle? What do we want?
But you're surveying people that they might not even be in the boundary or in the boundary, like I'm not even in the boundary and I'm here.
Yep.
Because I'm a little bit afraid that you're gonna expand this boundary.
Right.
So to me, you should know the boundary so that the people that are in that boundary would come. I feel like you're doing it backwards.
And that's what our plan was, to go forward if the citizens wanted to go forward.
So now you've heard from the citizens.
Yeah, we have.
Everybody's against it. So that means your meeting should be adjourned and then now that's it. It's over, correct?
I am politely waiting for y'all to end your discussion with us and have
So
a
from-
statement afterwards.
So from this point forward, this topic is gone. We're not going to hear about it again.
I am not on the board or the council for the town of Monument, but as a staff member, I would say in my mind, it has ended. Is there anyone else that would like to make any comments? All right, we appreciate y'all being here. We appreciate y'all being patient with us and listening to us. Once again, I think there's some missteps that we probably made and that we can improve on. But we've heard from you and I'm glad that you were able to speak to us tonight. Like I said earlier, and when I was talking to her, as a staff member, we're not going to do anything else.
Nobody here is a decision maker.
Do what?
Nobody here is a decision maker.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.